If you've ever read the stories in the Bible, you'll notice that God's friends often got themselves into all kinds of trouble. The kinds of troubles that would be impossible to come back from in any normal kind of story. Like the time where Daniel, a friend of God living in a foreign land, got himself thrown into a den of hungry lions for the crime of talking with God. Faced with certain death, Daniel called out to the Lord, and God stepped in, shutting the mouths of the lions, and so Daniel was rescued. Then there was Peter, who found himself unfairly locked in the deepest, darkest dungeons of the Romans. Faced with certain death, Peter called out to the Lord, and God sent an angel to break him out of prison, and so Peter was rescued. Then there was Jonah, a man who, whilst running away from God, found himself being thrown into the raging sea during a storm. Faced with certain death, Jonah called out to the Lord, and God sent a giant fish to swallow him whole until he could be safely spat out on shore again. And so Jonah was rescued too. The Bible is filled with these kinds of stories of the craziest rescues in the craziest ways. Few rescues are more famous, though, than that from Egypt. I'm sure you know the story. God's people had found themselves as slaves in a foreign land, under the rule of the mighty Egyptian Empire. Faced with the death of their nation, God sent a man called Moses to lead his people to freedom. With God's powerful acts paving the way, Moses was able to lead them out of Egypt. But it wasn't over yet. Trapped on the banks of the Red Sea, with the Egyptian army bearing down on them, God's people faced certain ruin. And so they called out to the Lord one last time. And guess what? God stepped in. He separated the vast waters that lay before them and provided them safe passage out of Egypt and out of slavery. And so, God's people were rescued. It's a pattern we see again and again in the Bible. God rescued his people in their moment of greatest need. It's what he does. It's who he is. But in truth, lions and prisons, storms and armies, these rescues pale in comparison with the greatest rescue we find in the Bible. A rescue so big, it would require God to come down to earth to sort it. Once and for all.